Hi there, welcome back to the Cypher Brief. This is Ethan Masukal. Today we're going to be talking about the Panama Canal, which is in the news because Trump has said that US control of the waterway is needed for economic security. There's been some pushback from Panama, so we're here to just discuss where we might think this will go. And here to talk about this with me is Martin Peterson. He is a 33-year veteran of the CIA, former acting executive director of the CIA, and a China expert by background. And we'll get into why that's important later. Marnie, thank you for joining me. The first thing, are you surprised that we're talking about this today? It didn't seem to be an issue a few weeks ago, but Trump's comments have seemed to make it so.
Not really, actually. Trump's comments certainly brought it to the fore and into the public forum in a way it hasn't been to this point. But if you take a look at what Southcom has been saying for the last several years, they've been very concerned about Latin American security, Chinese presence, and activities going on at the canal. There's actually really two issues here, I think, from what Trump has said. One is fees for use of the canal, and the other is the Chinese presence and involvement in the management of the canal.
Mhm.
So that there's the two issues are related, but they're also separate.
Right. So, sort of before we get into those specific issues, why should Americans be caring about the Panama Canal? I think when most people hear about this, it's just trade, and maybe that's where
Uh,
that high
well,
fee issue comes in. But
it's a global strategic choke point.
mm,
It is the principal connection between the Atlantic Ocean and the Pacific, not only for global trade, but also for military and strategic purposes as well.
right,
And if you look at what's going on in East Asia and the complex political and threat situation there, and I'm not just talking about our issues with China, but you've also got North Korea and as well. The ability to move U.S. forces, including especially naval forces, quickly and efficiently from one ocean to the other is absolutely critical to U.S. security. Your only other option, other options, are to sail around uh, Latin America or try and go north um, through the Arctic, but then you've got ice and other seasonal situations there. It's critical, I think, uh, and part of the treaty that would maintain the neutrality and access, that we'd be able to transit and use that canal without having it impeded in any way.
right, right. So not just cargo ships. Think also about naval vessels.
Military, yeah. And that's
Right.
certainly what Southcom, I think, is most concerned about. Yes.
Recognizing excellence in national security, the Cypher Brief Honors Dinner celebrates those who've made a real difference in protecting our nation. It's an unforgettable evening with top leaders in the field. Join us in honoring these remarkable contributions. Reserve your seat now at cypherbriefhonors.com.
Now, Trump has claimed that Chinese soldiers are operating at the canal, which, to my understanding, is not the case. But there are Chinese companies with projects and presence there. The one that's been focused on in the media is the Hong Kong-based firm CK Hutchinson Holdings, which operates ports at the canal's entrances. So given the national security importance of the canal that you've raised, um, what are the concerns about these Chinese firms there?
Well, actually, there's two Chinese firms there. There's CK Hutchinson and then there's Landbridge, and
Right.
they operate the ports at both ends of the canal. Okay,
Mhm.
so they're managing the process of transiting the canal. Is the way I understand it.
Mhm.
But they're also much more involved in that. They're winning bids for upgrading the canal, replacing locks, building bridges, and whatnot. Because China is pressing its aims aggressively in Asia out to the first island chain, and you see it with the uh, conflicts in the South China Sea and exercises around Taiwan and whatnot. there's great concern about what China may or may not be doing in the canal. And if you take a look at where U.S. defense intelligence and others have been over the last several years, Chinese hacking, cyber attacks, including some recent reports that they've also targeted U.S. infrastructure in the United States, naturally arouses suspicions about what may or may not be going on with Chinese activity in the canal, given its strategic importance to us. Now, I have no information on whether they're doing anything. I don't know whether they're military there or not. But I think from a foreign policy strategic point of view, you need to keep an eye on this. If things escalated in East Asia and China were in a position to either shut down or somehow or another cause a deterioration in the effectiveness of transit through the canal, it would have very important strategic effects. So it's not just what they're doing. It's, I think, more about what they might be doing.
Right.
Which is not to say that they are doing it.
Right.
But the overall pattern that we're seeing in U.S.-Chinese relations, the tensions and that sort of thing, Chinese cyber activities and espionage activities and that sort of thing do raise concerns.
Right. So more of a potential risk, something to look out for.
Right. And if you take a look at what they're doing across Latin America, China is now Latin America's number one trading partner. And between, I think, 2000 and 2020 or something, their trade with Latin America went up like 26-fold to like $315 billion or something. And I think the projection from Southcom is in another 10 years, it could reach 700 billion. Right. They've also got the Belt and Road activity going on. They've got a presence now in the Caribbean and elsewhere. So they're very active. A lot of it is legitimate diplomatic and trade activity. It's not necessarily military or that sort of thing, but Southcom and the U.S. Defense Establishment worry about Chinese influence and their ability to influence governments within the region. And given the amount of aid and activity they've got a fair amount of leverage.
Right, right. Just to follow up, so there has been pushback by Panama to
yes.
some of Trump's comments. As you've said, as you've described, China is very active in the region. Do you think there might be a risk of Panama being pushed closer to China, sort of in response?
Well, I doubt that. Okay, but I have no information. I really don't know what led Trump to make the remarks that he did. I have no insights into his thinking on this issue or others. Mm-hmm. But I will say that I think one impact of his comments is probably to caution both Panama and China not to do anything that could be interpreted as detrimental to U.S. interests in the region, not just in Panama. So call it a warning flag or whatnot. This is actually called diplomacy. You signal your intent, you raise issues, you put down markers, and then you see what happens after that. So we're still the preeminent power in that region. Anybody that wants to move closer to China or Russia or something, take a look at Cuba and Venezuela. They're going to have a harder time. The history of U.S. Latin American relations is not a very happy story. We always say good things, good neighbor policy, Organization of American States and that sort of thing. Our follow through on that has been something less than sparkling over our history, and indeed, in many cases, has been seen as detrimental to Latin American interests by Latin Americans.
Mm.
So we got a lot of diplomacy, a lot of work to do down there to maintain U.S. influence and contain whatever ambitions China may have beyond commercial.
Right. And then, final question on the canal. Where do you think this diplomacy, as you describe it, is headed? Where do you?
Well, I don't know. I guess the next move is is Panama and China. We'll see what happens. We're going to get a new Secretary of State. He's in confirmation hearings, I think, today. We got a new national security team coming in a week. I don't know how far up their list of things that they need to address immediately this particular issue is. Certainly, situation in Ukraine, situation in the Middle East, reviving and building up NATO. So this is one of many issues. So we'll have to see where it goes. See where it goes. But I guess I would put it this way: Trump's put down a marker. Now let's see what happens next.
We'll see what happens next.
That's right.
Comes in on Monday. Marty Pearson, thank you so much for your insights. Thank you for joining us here at the Cypher Brief.
You're welcome, Ethan. Have a good day.
Thank you. You too.